is that you have to ask yourself, how can you promise an infinite APR from a finite reward pool? Think about it. So you buy up the tokens, and I'm not going to give Fire as an example anymore because I think they have a superior model. But let's say that you buy up 10 of whatever node tokens, right? And then what you do is you exchange those tokens for this node. And then with this node, what you're doing is you're giving up your right to sell those tokens. They're gone forever. And part of them are placed in a reward pool. Part of them goes up to the team, part of it goes to something else, etc. It gets distributed, right? But then what most node projects are getting wrong, I believe, is that you're trying to promise an infinite APR because that thing is going to be paying you out for allegedly the rest of your life. But then it's a rather finite reward pool because you need more and more people to buy up your tokens in order to make the nodes, in order to continue to grow that pot. Once the pot starts to dwindle, guess what? You have to cut down rewards. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So, first question you have to ask when you're looking at an old project long term: how can you promise infinite APR with a finite reward pool? The math isn't there. You have to be able to feed the reward pool, and that feed has to be really consequential. It has to be a massive hose feeding in rewards into that reward pool, or else the whole thing collapses. The other thing that you have to ask yourself is, does the team get paid in tokens? If the team gets paid in tokens, guess what? That is constant buying pressure. If the devs are getting paid in tokens, they must, in order to pay their bills, to put selling pressure on the protocol. And you have to remember, who are the players in the protocol? It's you, it's the other players, the other people buying up the tokens and building up their nodes. And it's also the protocol. Okay. Now, when you have those two sides, you have to ask yourself, where is the value coming from? We're going to get into that a little bit later, because then, do you win so that the protocol can lose? Because then you're playing against the house. Or do you win so that another player can lose? You also have to consider that. Do they pay out their marketing with tokens? If they pay out their marketing with tokens, I can talk from experience. Those marketers do not want the token. They will sell as soon as they get those tokens. So that's more buying pressure. That to me is a red flag for sure. If not, at least an orange flag. Does the protocol promote selling pressure or buying pressure? That is the bottom line. Do they need to sell more and more tokens in order to run the operations of what they have right now? Okay. How some projects are going to try to fix this. Some projects are now coming out with a few solutions to that. And most of them are focusing only on how can we not run out of tokens? Because you have to remember, the token is the reward. And then you have to ask yourself, if the token is the reward, what else is the token being used for? Because if the token is only the reward and you need to buy, say, 10 units, but then you only get that as a reward as well during the payout, you have to ask yourself, do we have growth that is continuous and enough for the token payout to be sustainable? That's always the question in the back of your mind. Now, because you have to buy up, say, 10, 100, whatever is the number of tokens that you need to buy, and you get maybe, 0 point something per day, or 1% per day, or 2% per day, or 0.5% per day, whatever the number is right now for each individual protocol, then you have to ask yourself, okay, are there enough people buying up enough tokens, making enough nodes for the reward pool to not be depleted too quickly? And the depletion can happen very, very quickly. That massive decay can happen very, very quickly. So some projects are suggesting to actually cut rewards, because you know what? They're looking at their rewards pool. Because it's finite, they have to cut rewards. You've seen it before. I'm not going to name names. I respect those protocols for trying to keep it sustainable. but it's because they're looking at a closed system. Nodes, the way that they have been created, or node like projects or yield bearing NFTs, are a very closed system. And so you have to ask yourself, if it's a closed system, where does the value come from? Another thing that I've seen actually been suggested in the last couple of days only is to make the node rewards um, time or payout limited, meaning that you might be able to buy a node, but it's only going to spit out an X amount of tokens, and that X amount is limited, or it's time limited, meaning it's only going to pay out for the next 3, 6, 9 months, whatever the term is. That is an idea that some projects are trying to initiate as well. Again, it's all focused on how can we make sure that we pay less or we control the closed system. Our view on nodes is a little bit different. In fact, it's very, very different. Reason being, if you go back to my initial question, which was how can you promise infinite APR from a finite reward pool? Anything that you do in order to lower emissions and lower the rewards so that you can grow in time and maintain your sustainability is somewhat short sighted, because you're not asking the question, where is the value coming from? Think about anything and everything that you buy. If you buy a stock, well, guess what? There's you, there's the company selling you a piece of their operations, but then there's the client. The value is coming from the client giving them money, making them a profit, and then you're profiting from the fact that you think they're going to profit more, less, whatever. Then it becomes speculation at that point. That's a different layer. But there are three different players, and the real value add is the person that's actually buying the product, but you are also gaining something from that. So it's very dynamic. When it comes to, say, something like bonds, right? So you buy a government bond, you're buying debt. So you're giving money to the government, you're going to have that money back, but you know that they can print that currency, and you're hoping that the speed at which they print the currency is enough to pay you back and retain its value. So it's kind of you against the government, and you're making a bet that they're going to give you the money back with that juicy coupon, but that they're not going to print so much money that money is not going to be worth anything. So when you have two players, you have to ask yourself, just you and the protocol, you, the protocol, and even other players, where is the value coming from? And this is what we would like to propose that's very different with NostraCity.